Hello and welcome to Marvel Crisis Protocol Declassified. This is a series where we take a look at various Marvel Crisis Protocol characters, give a brief history of their lore, and then look at some tactics as how Nikki and I would play them on the table. In this episode, we're going to take a look at Rhino. Nikki, first of all, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Andy. How are you?
I am doing great, thank you. So Rhino, classic Spider-Man character, villain I should say, not character.
Yep.
He's one of the newest additions to the game, and there's been some interesting conversations about him already.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things when I look at his card and then read about him in the comics, they did a good job. Like, I think his character is well represented.
It is, but I think there are certain people who are wondering, did other characters who were already in-game do it better? Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing we want to take a look at in the second part of this video. The first thing, though, let's take a look a little bit about his lore, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Rhino, a.k.a. Alexei Syetsevich. He is a Russian mobster who first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 41, which was July 1966. So he's been around for quite a while. In this initial appearance, he was hired by the Russian mob to kidnap John Jameson, the astronaut son of J. Jonah Jameson.
That doesn't sound like a good idea. I feel like that's not going to go well for him.
It did not. So the interesting thing, this is the comic that established the idea that Rhino is incredibly powerful, and when he makes a charge, he's almost Juggernaut-like, where it's hard to stop him. But Spider-Man was able to figure out that when he's charging, he can't stop, and he really has no control over himself, and he used that to his advantage to eventually defeat Rhino by basically making him crash into things and then fall into a trap set by Spider-Man himself.
Yeah, it seems like with Rhino, he is a action first, think about it later. He's not strategically thinking, he's just doing.
He's brute force, yeah. And in fact, that was commented in a number of sources. They hired him and put him in the suit because he's not a very smart guy.
Yeah, which, I mean, when I was reading all this in the comics and just in general, I felt kind of bad for him. I felt a little sorry for him.
He has had a little rough life, yeah. And it gets a little worse, too. But before that, so in Spider-Man, he was able actually to destroy the original Rhino armor. He used a corrosive web concoction to destroy it. But believe it or not, in Hulk number 104, they gave him a second opportunity. They recreated the suit and this time infused him with gamma power. So his strength was doubled. And then he was sent after the Hulk, which that seems like a worse idea than sending him after Spider-Man or going after Spider-Man.
It does. It doesn't seem like a great idea, honestly.
So actually, it was believed that Hulk actually killed Rhino, but obviously that was not the case. But it was Justin Hammer who created this suit for him at this time. And obviously, from this point on, Rhino would go on to have a number more misadventures. One of those, obviously, as we stated already, he's not known for his intelligence, but he did go undergo a treatment at one point to make him what turned out to be a super genius. But it turns out that was not a good idea for Rhino. He actually had the worst of luck being super smart. He was too smart for his own good. He actually was in a relationship at the time that the relationship ended, and ultimately he was contemplating taking his own life. So instead, he just reverted himself back to the knucklehead that we all know and love. He's actually worked for a number of supervillains over the years. The big surprise for me was Thanos. He actually was, it wasn't the Black Order, but he did work for Thanos it was actually Thanos Defenders. So you know our Defenders,
Yeah.
with Doctor Strange. Thanos, at one point in the comic history, had what they call Thanos Defenders. Kind of the same concept, except it was mainly made up of villains. So he worked for Thanos. Green Goblin, I don't think that's going to be a shock. In fact, he works for Spider-Foes in the game. Dr. Octopus, Kraven, and the leader, the Hulk villain, the leader, and that's just to name a few. So he's worked for a few people, including Wilson Fisk, who we will talk about in just a little bit.
Yeah, and as you're saying all this, because he's not the brightest, he's very easily manipulated by the bad guys. And it also seemed like as I was reading it, he did try to not be a bad guy for a while, on and off.
Right. So, and that leads us to, that's a great segue, Nikki. Thank you very much. He actually had a run-in with the Punisher. And this was actually one of the first times I saw post Spider-Man dissolving the original suit that his armor could be destroyed, at least in part. So what happened was he was doing a robbery. There was a guard, a security guard in his way. He knocked him back. The guard flew into some rebar that was sticking out of a now broken wall, and it impaled him, and he died from it.
Yikes.
Yeah, the Punisher, obviously not taking too kindly to that, went after Rhino and shot him with a rocket launcher, which blew up the chest piece of the Rhino armor. When he was fleeing from the Punisher at that point, Kraven captured him and put him in this weird zoo of weird hybrid humanoid creatures. So Vulture was his next door cellmate, and they eventually were able to escape from all that, actually with the help of the Punisher. The Punisher did not necessarily give him a pass, but let him go this time, did not hunt him. And incidentally, this would be one of the first two times that we know of, at least, that Kraven would hunt Rhino. So Kraven and Rhino, not exactly the besties. However, as we did note also, he did work for Kraven at one point. But it was this run-in with the Punisher that made him decide that maybe criminal life is not the best idea. And he did go, or there's a number of storylines where he tried to go and become a good person. In fact, we were reading one. It was a Christmas. No, it was Halloween.
It was Halloween.
It was
yes.
a Halloween.
And this one was pretty recent, I think.
Yeah, it was one of those one shots. I think it was.
It was kind of amusing. It was supposed to be sort of amusing little tale.
And it basically had Rhino's therapist as a good angel and devil on his shoulder, and he's trying to figure out what to do, the good thing, the bad thing. He actually ends up teaming up with Spider-Man at one point in that. Yeah, so there are a number of storylines where he does try to go straight and narrow, but ultimately he always goes back to crime. That's just what he knows. He's not really smart enough or willing to do the right thing for too long. The most latest storyline that we could find was actually the Devil's Reign storyline, which was this particular part of it took place midsummer of 2022. He was working as one of Wilson Fisk's Thunderbolts. In the Devil Reign storyline, just a quick thing. Basically, the Purple Man and his children were able to wipe out the knowledge of Daredevil from the populace. So no one knew who Daredevil was anymore, especially the Kingpin. And the Kingpin was furious. So he outlawed superheroes in New York. He was Mayor Fisk at this point. And to enforce this, he created his own Thunderbolts team. Rhino was a member of that team. And what was kind of interesting, he's a villain. He's obviously a villain. You kind of read through the storyline. He's not malicious.
No, he's not evil. He's just trying to kind of like make a living. That's all he knows.
That's all he knows. He's just, he's a criminal. He loves crime, but he's not wanting to hurt anybody if he doesn't have to. He just wants to get paid.
I'm not sure how much he minds hurting people, but it's not like he's going out of his way to do it. He's not malicious about it.
I mean, if you look at somebody like, and this is probably way extreme, but Carnage. He's nowhere near Carnage. He's not even, a bullseye. He is somebody who just...
He's doing his job. He's trying to make money.
He wants to get paid. So, that's a brief history of his lore. His armor in itself is kind of a unique situation. So it is a suit of modularly aligned and composed of thick polymer matte material. So we had the original costume that was destroyed by Spider-Man. For the longest time, when he got gamma radiated and then had the new suit attached, he couldn't take it off. It said it was corrosively bonded to his skin.
Which I was reading some different things. How did Rhino go to the bathroom? That was an interesting.
And people wanted to know, and they actually did explain it in some. I guess it was one of the old books,
Like a handbook or something. Yeah.
like they sometimes they have Marvel handbook to what have you. It's not a comic; it's a handbook.
So apparently there is an opening where he can get rid of waste.
So for those of you who are worried, he can. When it was stuck to him,
don't worry.
He
can do it.
Since then, that suit was there was a composite that was created by Dr. Octopus. He was able to remove it so Rhino could take it off. But when Rhino took it off, Kingpin let Rhino know that, you may think you've walked away from this life, but I can take you out at any time, and sent a bomb to remind Rhino who's the boss. Rhino was not too pleased about this, plus he missed the crime life. So he had Justin Hammer create him a modified version of the suit that was, it could be removed. So he can take it off now, or at least that was at one point. They may change it again.
Who knows when that will change, yeah.
It is a fairly good suit, though. It can withstand at least 1 ton of TNT, extreme temperatures between negative 50 to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit without melting. It is acid resistant now, especially after that Spider-Man incident. And the Rhino horns, there are 2 of them, or there's supposed to be 2 of them in most of his armor, can pierce through 2 inches of steel.
Wow.
So, pretty gnarly.
That's handy.
Yeah. So Rhino, very interesting character. I guess the last, you kind of said he was a tragic character. He did actually get married at one point in the comics, but his wife was killed, unfortunately. And for those of you who are aware of who the Jackal is, the Jackal, best known in the comics for his cloning ability, the Jackal created a clone of Alexi's wife in order to as a payment, basically, to work for him. But she ultimately ended up disintegrating because his clones are unstable. I mean, there's been a number of storylines about that.
That's sad.
Yeah. So he is basically back in the criminal life. He's alone. He's lonely. But again, he is a semi-understandable villain. Again, he's not out there to be malicious. He's just there to get paid.
All right.
So I think with that, should we go to kind of our thoughts on him in the game?
Sure.
Awesome. So this next part is going to be Rhino at a glance in the game from our perspective. This is strictly our take on him. And as we would love to point out, we are not trying to come up with the greatest tactics of all time for tournament-worthy Rhino. This is how we would play him.
Well, my first thought, just looking at him, is how much fun. Like, you're going to have fun playing Rhino.
You're going to have fun. But I think there's a more important question, Nikki.
What's that?
Is Rhino truly the MCP love child of Lizard and Juggernaut?
This is a good question, Andy. Good question.
We have spent many an hour researching this. Is he truly the love child? No. I think that's the really key. You hit the nail on the head on that one. Is Rhino going to be fun to play? Yeah, I think he's going to be a lot of fun to play.
Yes. We have seen him compared to Lizard and also Juggernaut, and I think Lizard's one you're holding back. He's pushing people away, things like that. He can just sit there and do his job. Rhino's going to be moving. He's going to be forcing himself into places, causing destruction, causing chaos.
Yeah, and to your point, I've played Lizard a few times now, and I'll be doing Rhino I'll be playing him for the first time tomorrow. The one problem I always had with Lizard, I never felt I should be moving him up. He just needed to stay back, guard whatever objective he was supposed to be guarding, and even then, it wasn't much fun. I mean, his attacks are kind of boring. They can knock people away. He can keep them off objectives, and he can take a hit. But he's just kind of boring to play. His team tactic cards, incredibly boring to play.
Yeah, he's not like I've played him a couple of times too, and it was fine. It was fine, not a bad character at all, but just I feel like Rhino's just a little bit more interactive, I guess.
And let's put it this way too. I have no comic or movie love for Lizard. He is a great character. He fits in the game. They did a good job of making him fit who he is from the movies. But I've got no personal attachment to him, and I think that's part of my problem when I'm looking at characters is who am I trying to reimagine the story for? Mm-hmm. And Rhino, while I'm not necessarily more bonded with him, he is totally my playstyle.
Yeah,
like, all right,
he is a lot your playstyle.
let's just throw him in the direction of somebody and just have him charge. And I'll be the first to admit, I was a little concerned when I saw he only had one attack. But that's all Rhino really ever does in the comics. If they had him punching people, now he can throw. That's a big one. He can definitely throw, and he does in the comics. As I stated when he accidentally killed the security guard. But Rhino only really gores in the comic. That's his attack, and that is perfect.
I mean, he's simple.
He's
He's not complicated. As far as him thinking about things, he just does.
Right.
So that actually makes sense. That was a good call. And then you can amp up his dice, of course, with Stampede, and shove your way through size 2 terrain and all kinds of cool stuff.
And it gives him 2 more dice on that gore attack, or his it is gore. It's gore attack.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
And that's it. I mean, that's all you're going to really ever be doing. And it's a range 3 attack. With that base, he is going to be moving around the board. And then lo and behold, if you actually hit him, 2 things are going to happen. A, he's aggressive. So that means you have the possibility of moving him. But he also is ornery, which means if you haven't dazed or KO'd him, he's going to get another power. So a bare minimum, and he's got his damage reduction, which is his Rhino hide. So at bare minimum, 1 point of damage is going to give him 2 power and allow him to move.
Yeah, and then, I've seen people say, well, you can just ignore him. Are you really going to be able to ignore him when he's shoving his way in your face all the time? Or if he is holding an an extraction objective?
Exactly. Yeah. No, you can try, but if the person who is playing him in his aggressive form, which that's how I would play him. This is not a guy you're going to hold back and have hold objectives. If you're playing him mostly aggressive, he's going to be coming right at you, and he's going to gore into you, possibly even throw you to the side if you have an objective with his, this is a robbery. It doesn't matter how big you are. You could be Toad size or you could be Dormammu sized. The card doesn't specify. He's going to throw you. And it's so much fun when you're size 4 or 5 being thrown by a character like this. So lots of fun possibilities with him. Which leads us to Rhino in a China Shop, which has the possibility to be one of the most insane hits in the game.
Yeah, so if you're throwing and you're stampeding through some terrain, I mean, gosh, that could be a lot.
Yeah, so you've got the base 5 damage from his gore. The stampede can give you another possible of 2, and through that stampede, you're hopefully going to take out a couple pieces of terrain. Let's say a couple cars or something. And if you are lucky enough to be able to throw also this round a size 4 piece of terrain, that's, let's say, the 4, the 2 2s, that's 8 already. And then the gore, the stampede of 10, or 2. So you're at 10 right now. 10 plus the 5 originally from the gore. You can potentially, score 15 dice or more, depending how lucky you are.
Yeah, the possibilities seem like insane.
Now, I get most likely your opponent is going to be, trying to avoid that, and in most cases that won't work. But when it works, that one game where you pull it off and you roll 15 dice and roll 14 misses, but you're still rolling 15 dice, because we all know when you roll more dice, you're just probably going to miss with all those attacks. Or you're going to be going against somebody like Domino, who's like, nope, no crits. But But that one magic unicorn game where you pull it off will make it all worth it in the end.
Well, I guess we're going to see, Andy, because we're going to be playing Rhino pretty soon.
We will be
and
playing.
I'm interested to know if after we play him, we'll change any of our thoughts.
And that's a good point. But all in all, I am excited to put him on the board. I think he's going to be a lot of fun. I'm expecting him to do some things. I think he is going to be a little bit difficult to play because he seems so easy to play. So how do you play him the best? How can I effectively move him around the board? And then, are you going to be using his aggressive against me? Are you going to be pinging him with attacks trying to get me to move in one direction because you don't want me to go another? I mean, I easily fall into that trap all the time. So
Yeah. So who are we playing in this battle report next time?
I will be playing the Spider Foes, and you, I believe, are going to be playing Weapon X.
That is right. So we'll see how this goes.
And what's nice is, for once, that's a straight-up physical, or mostly physical versus mostly physical battle. We don't tend to do those very often, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
I do too.
So next battle report, Weapon X versus Spider Foes. Rhino's going to be there.
And it'll be out a week from today.
All right. Well, until then, we hope you're all doing great, and we'll see you next time on Marvel Crisis Protocol Declassified.